There is a silence that lives beneath the noise of your life. A quiet tremor in the foundations of who you believe yourself to be. It speaks not in words, but in a feeling, a subtle ache of something missing, a yearning for a melody you've almost forgotten, or perhaps, have never truly allowed yourself to hear. This is the whisper of the self, the blueprint of your soul, calling you towards a destiny uniquely your own. It is the call to individuation, the most sacred, terrifying, and ultimately rewarding journey you will ever undertake. The courage to become who you truly are, not who the world, in its relentless, well-meaning, or coercive clamor, demands you to be. We are born into a world of mirrors, a grand theater of expectations. From our first breath, we learn to read the faces, to interpret the silences, to sense the invisible currents of approval and disapproval. We are sculpted, often unconsciously, by the hands of family, culture, education, by the stories we are told about who we should be, what we should value, how we should appear. And so, we begin to craft a face to meet the faces. A mask. Jung called it the persona, from the Latin word for the masks worn by actors in ancient Greek drama. It is the interface between our innermost world and the outer collective. A necessary compromise. A tool for navigating the complexities of social existence. Without it, we would be raw, exposed, perhaps too vulnerable to function. The persona allows us to play our roles: the diligent student, the responsible employee, the caring parent, the charming friend. It helps us to belong, to be accepted, to achieve. It is the armor we wear in the daily battles of existence, the currency we use to trade in the marketplace of society. But the persona, like any mask, carries a profound danger. What begins as a functional tool can become a gilded cage. The applause of the crowd, the nods of approval, the sense of fitting in, these can be intoxicating. And slowly, imperceptibly, we can begin to mistake the mask for our true face. The role becomes the reality. The performance becomes the person. We invest so much of our psychic energy into maintaining this curated image, this acceptable version of ourselves, that the authentic self, the one yearning for expression from those deeper chambers of the soul, becomes increasingly silent, buried beneath layers of conformity. The light in our own eyes dims, replaced by the reflected glow of external validation. We become, as Jung observed, a mere echo of the collective, a false personality, living a life that is technically proficient but psychically hollow. The original melody of the soul is drowned out by the orchestra of expectation. Consider the figure of the eternal apprentice, forever seeking the approval of a master, never daring to claim their own artistry. Or the courtier, whose smile is a finely calibrated instrument of diplomacy, whose every gesture is designed to please the sovereign, but whose heart harbors a desert of unexpressed truth. These are not just characters from history or fable. They are archetypal patterns that live within the human psyche, cautionary tales whispered down the ages. When the persona becomes too rigid, too identified with, it suffocates the life force. Spontaneity withers. Creativity falters. A profound sense of unreality can set in, a feeling of being an imposter in one's own life. You might achieve all the outward markers of success, the career, the relationships, the possessions, yet find yourself standing in the midst of it all with a soul that is starving. This is the price of an unexamined persona, a life lived in the shallows, while the ocean of your true potential remains unexplored. The world may applaud the performance, but the soul knows the truth of its own impoverishment. It knows the quiet betrayal of its own unfolding. The discomfort grows, a psychic friction between the outer presentation and the inner reality. This is not a sign of failure, it is a sign that something vital within you is fighting for its life, for its emergence. It is the first stirring of that profound courage, the courage to question the mask, to peer behind it, and to begin the arduous, often lonely, but utterly essential journey of reclaiming the face you were born with, the one that reflects not the world's desires, but the unique, unrepeatable signature of your own soul. This is the dawn of individuation, not as a concept, but as a lived imperative, a deep calling to divest from the false and invest in the real, to exchange the comfort of the known costume for the terrifying freedom of your naked, authentic being. The path demands that we turn inward, away from the clamor of the collective and into the often unsettling landscape of our own inner world, for it is only there, in the depths, that the true work can begin. The weight of this mask, this carefully constructed identity, can become immense. It is the burden of 1,000 unsaid truths, of countless compromises made not from wisdom, but from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of ridicule, fear of not belonging, fear of the sheer, unadulterated intensity of our own being. And so, the persona, initially a bridge to the world, can become a fortress, walling us off not only from others in any genuine sense, but more tragically, from ourselves. We become so adept at playing the part that we forget the actor. The script, handed down through generations or hastily scribbled in response to societal pressures, becomes our only known lines. The applause, however hollow, becomes the only nourishment we seek. But the soul, that resilient, untamable core of our being, it does underscore not forget. It remembers the original song, the raw, untamed landscape of its own nature. And it will begin to send messages, coded in the language of dreams, in the pangs of anxiety, in the sudden, inexplicable waves of melancholy that wash over us even in moments of apparent triumph. It will manifest in the nagging feeling that there must be more than this. This divine discontent is not a pathology to be medicated away, but a sacred summons. It is the self, knocking from within, urging us to look beyond the polished surface, to question the roles we inhabit with such practiced ease. The journey of individuation often begins with this subtle, or sometimes shattering, recognition. This is not all of me. This role, this life, however well crafted, is too small for my spirit. It is the realization that the security of the familiar has become a form of imprisonment. And with this realization, however faint, the first crack appears in the facade of the persona. Through this crack, a sliver of authentic light may penetrate, or equally, a plume of darkness may begin to seep. For beneath the persona, in the unlit regions of our psyche, lies all that we have deemed unacceptable, all that we have disowned in our quest for conformity. This is the realm of the shadow. The persona, in its relentless pursuit of acceptability, casts a long shadow. This shadow is not evil, not in the simplistic sense. It is, as Jung illuminated, the repository of all that we have repressed, rejected, or remain ignorant of within ourselves. It is the unseen underside of our ego consciousness. All the qualities we disown because they don't fit our idealized self-image, or because they were shamed or punished in our upbringing, are relegated to this inner darkness. Our anger, our envy, our greed, our vulnerability, our untamed creativity, our raw sexuality, our unconventional thoughts, anything that threatens the curated perfection of the persona is banished here. But what is banished is not destroyed. It lives on, simmering beneath the surface, gathering energy in the unconscious. The more brightly polished the persona, the darker and denser the shadow it casts. The saintly figure may wrestle with unacknowledged demons of judgment and pride. The stoic hero may be crippled by buried grief. The relentlessly positive individual may be seething with repressed rage. The shadow is the inconvenient truth of our wholeness. It is the other, within us, the one who whispers uncomfortable realities in our dreams, the one who sometimes hijacks our best intentions, causing us to act in ways that shock our conscious sensibilities. The slip of the tongue, the inexplicable outburst, the self-sabotaging behavior. These are often incursions from the shadow, desperate attempts by the disowned parts of ourselves to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be integrated. We tend to encounter our shadow first through projection. We see in others, with startling clarity and often vehement judgment, the very qualities we deny in ourselves. The faults that irritate us most in those around us are often our own unacknowledged shadows dancing mockingly before our eyes. That person whose arrogance infuriates you. Perhaps it mirrors a disowned ambition or a secret sense of superiority within you. That individual whose perceived weakness elicits your contempt. It might be your own unacknowledged vulnerability, your own fear of frailty, that you are so desperately trying to keep at bay. The world becomes a screen upon which our inner drama is projected, and our emotional reactions become the clues, the breadcrumbs leading us back to the lost territories of our own soul. Confronting the shadow is terrifying. It means acknowledging the parts of ourselves we have been taught to despise. It means admitting that we are not as good, as pure, or as consistent as our persona would have us, and others, believe. It requires a radical honesty, a willingness to look into the abyss of our own nature without flinching, without immediate condemnation. It feels like a descent, a journey into the underworld of the psyche, reminiscent of Inanna's descent, or Orpheus's journey into Hades. These myths are not mere stories. They are psychic maps, outlining the perilous but necessary encounter with the darker, chthonic aspects of our being. The ego recoils from this encounter. It wants to maintain its illusion of control, its carefully constructed identity. But the shadow, if persistently ignored, will find other ways to make its presence known. It can erupt in destructive behaviors, in inexplicable moods, in physical illness, or in a general sense of malaise and deadness. It can poison our relationships, as we unconsciously project our darker traits onto our partners, our friends, our colleagues, turning them into scapegoats for our own inner conflicts. The more we suppress the shadow, the more autonomous and destructive it can become. It is the beast in the basement, growing more ferocious with every attempt to deny its existence. Yet, paradoxically, this dreaded shadow holds immense treasures. Jung spoke of the gold in the shadow. For in banishing our unwanted traits, we often cast away vital parts of our energy, our creativity, our power, our authenticity. The anger we disown might be the source of our assertiveness, our ability to set boundaries. The sensitivity we deemed weakness might be the wellspring of our empathy and intuition. The wild, untamed desires we suppressed might hold the key to our passion and our unique creative expression. The shadow is not just a cellar of negativity, it is a storehouse of untapped potential. The process of integrating the shadow is an alchemical one. It involves bringing the darkness to light, not to obliterate it, but to understand it, to accept it, and ultimately, to reclaim its energy. It is about withdrawing our projections from others and owning these qualities as parts of our own complex, multifaceted nature. This is not an invitation to indulge our darkest impulses indiscriminately. Rather, it is about making them conscious, understanding their roots, and finding constructive ways to express their underlying energy. It is the difference between being unconsciously driven by rage and consciously harnessing the fire of that anger for passionate action or courageous truth-telling. It is the courage to say, yes, this too is part of me. This darkness, this flaw, this imperfection, it belongs. In this acceptance, a profound shift occurs. The energy that was bound up in repression is liberated. We become less judgmental of others, because we are less judgmental of ourselves. We become more whole, more human, more grounded. The persona becomes more flexible, more transparent, allowing more of our true light, and indeed, our integrated darkness, to shine through. This embrace of the shadow is a crucial step in the journey of individuation, for one cannot become whole by cutting off half of oneself. It is the willingness to carry our own darkness that allows us to truly appreciate our light, and to meet the world with a newfound depth, compassion, and authenticity. The path to the self leads directly through the heart of the shadow. It is here, in this challenging terrain, that we begin to forge an alliance with the deeper, often unsettling, forces that shape us from within. And as we navigate this intricate dance between the persona and the shadow, we inevitably encounter another layer of the unconscious, populated by powerful, gendered archetypal energies, the anima in men, and the animus in women. These are not simply inner counterparts of the opposite sex, but complex psychological structures that act as bridges to the collective unconscious, shaping our perceptions, our relationships, and our creative lives. The anima, for a man, is the unconscious feminine principle, the archetype of life itself, often personified in dreams and fantasies as a mysterious, alluring, or sometimes frightening female figure. She carries his eros, his capacity for relatedness, his connection to emotion, intuition, and the soul. When a man is unconscious of his anima, he tends to project her onto actual women, seeking in them the embodiment of his own soul qualities. He might idealize a woman, seeing her as a goddess, only to be bitterly disappointed when she reveals her human imperfections. Or he might be drawn to women who reflect the undeveloped aspects of his own feminine side, perhaps becoming entangled with moody, irrational partners if his own emotional life is repressed. or with overly ethereal women if his connection to earthly realities is weak. The anima, when unintegrated, can lead to emotional dependency, moodiness, sentimentality, or a general lack of groundedness. She can whisper poisonous insecurities or fill him with a vague, insatiable longing. Think of the tormented artist, driven by a capricious muse he can neither capture nor escape, his creativity inextricably linked to his tumultuous inner feminine. Or the eternal son, forever seeking a maternal figure to affirm his existence, unable to stand firmly on his own psychic ground. These are manifestations of an anima that has not been consciously met and integrated. To engage with the anima is to turn inward, to cultivate a relationship with one's own feeling life, one's intuition, one's capacity for empathy and connection. It means withdrawing those projections from the women in his life and recognizing that the qualities he seeks or fears in them are, in fact, aspects of his own inner landscape. As he integrates the anima, she ceases to be a source of unconscious compulsion and becomes instead a source of profound wisdom, creativity, and inner guidance. She connects him to the depths of his soul, opening him to a richer, more nuanced experience of life. She becomes his inner muse, his guide to the imaginal realm, the voice of his deepest values. Conversely, for a woman, the animus is the unconscious masculine principle, the archetype of meaning and spirit. He personifies her capacity for logic, reason, assertiveness, and focused action. In dreams and fantasies, he may appear as a powerful, authoritative figure, a wise old man, a group of men, or sometimes a dangerous aggressor. When a woman is unconscious of her animus, she is prone to projecting him onto men, seeking in them the embodiment of her own unlived masculine potential. She might be drawn to overly opinionated or dogmatic men if her own thinking is undeveloped, or she might find herself clashing with authority figures as a way of wrestling with her own inner power. An unintegrated animus can manifest as rigid opinions, a critical or argumentative attitude, a tendency to make harsh judgments, or an inability to connect with her own inner authority. She might find herself possessed by a multitude of shoulds and oughts, her inner world governed by a kind of patriarchal counsel that stifles her creativity and spontaneity. Consider the figure of the Amazon, fiercely independent yet secretly yearning for a connection that her armored stance prevents. Or the woman who, in a male-dominated world, adopts a caricature of masculinity, sacrificing her feminine essence in the pursuit of power, only to find that power hollow. These are often expressions of an animus struggling for conscious recognition. The integration of the animus involves a woman claiming her own intellectual and spiritual authority, developing her capacity for clear thought and decisive action, and learning to express her own truths with courage and conviction. It means withdrawing her projections from the men in her life and recognizing that the power, the wisdom, and the agency she attributes to them are also her own. As she cultivates a conscious relationship with her animus, he transforms from an inner critic or a source of unconscious drive into a source of strength, clarity, and creative inspiration. He helps her to connect with her inner logos, to articulate her unique vision, and to act with purpose in the world. He becomes her inner partner, supporting her in the realization of her deepest potentials. The journey with the anima or animus is a profound alchemical process. It is about creating an inner sacred marriage, a conjunction, between our conscious ego and these powerful contrasexual archetypes. This inner union is not about becoming androgynous in a superficial sense, but about becoming more whole, more complete, drawing on the full spectrum of human qualities. It is about fostering a dialogue between our thinking and feeling, our assertiveness and receptivity, our capacity for action and our capacity for being. This integration is essential for individuation, for it opens up the deeper layers of the unconscious, connecting us to the vast, transpersonal realm of the collective unconscious, where the universal patterns of human experience reside, the archetypes themselves. These inner figures, the anima and animus, are the gatekeepers, the psychopomps, guiding us from the personal to the universal, from the limited ego to the boundless self. Beyond the persona, the shadow, the anima, and the animus lie the archetypes themselves, the primordial images, the universal patterns of human experience that reside in the collective unconscious. These are not inherited ideas, but inherited predispositions to experience and represent the world in certain ways. They are the psychic DNA of humanity, the invisible blueprints that shape our myths, our religions, our dreams, and our deepest psychological dramas. The hero, the sage, the innocent, the orphan, the magician, the ruler, the lover, the jester, the rebel, the great mother, the wise old man, the trickster, these are but a few of an infinite array of archetypal figures and motifs that resonate across cultures and throughout history, speaking to the fundamental conditions of human existence. They are the echoes of our ancestors, the distilled wisdom and folly of countless generations, embedded in the very structure of our psyche. The journey of individuation is, in many ways, a journey through these archetypal landscapes. We are all, at different times in our lives, called to embody the hero archetype, to venture forth from the known world, to confront dragons, whether inner or outer, and to retrieve some treasure, some new level of consciousness or capacity. This hero's journey, as famously mapped by Joseph Campbell, is not just a pattern found in myths. It is a metaphor for the psychic odyssey of individuation itself. It involves a separation from the familiar, an initiation into the mysteries of the unconscious, and a return, transformed, to share the boon with the collective. Consider the alchemists, toiling in their laboratory, seeking not just the transmutation of base metals into gold, but the transformation of their own soul. Their furnaces and alembics were symbols of the inner crucible, where the raw material of the psyche, the prima materia of our unrefined instincts and emotions, was subjected to heat, dissolution, and coagulation, in a process mirroring the stages of individuation. They sought the philosopher's stone, the lapis, which was not merely an external substance, but a symbol of the integrated self, the harmonious union of opposites. This alchemical quest is a profound allegory for the work of confronting our shadow, integrating our contrasexual aspects, and ultimately, birthing the authentic self. The archetype of the sage, the wise old man or wise old woman, often appears in our lives, or in our dreams, during times of confusion or crisis. This figure represents the wisdom of the collective unconscious, offering guidance, insight, and a deeper perspective. It might manifest as an inspiring mentor, a profound book that falls into our hands at the perfect moment, or an inner voice of knowing that arises from the stillness of contemplation. The sage calls us to look beyond the immediate, to connect with timeless truths, and to find meaning in our experiences. Then there is the trickster, a more ambiguous and often unsettling figure. Coyote, Loki, Hermes, these are archetypal pranksters who delight in disrupting order, challenging conventions, and exposing hypocrisy. The trickster energy within us can manifest as a playful irreverence, a creative impulse that breaks old patterns, or sometimes, as a self-sabotaging tendency that forces us to confront our own rigidities and illusions. The trickster reminds us not to take ourselves, or our carefully constructed realities, too seriously. He is an agent of change, often uncomfortable, but necessary for psychic mobility and the breaking down of stagnant structures. The Great Mother archetype, in her dual aspect, represents both the nurturing, life-giving forces of nature and the devouring, consuming darkness. She is the source from which all life emerges and to which it returns. Our relationship with this archetype shapes our capacity for care, our connection to the body and the earth, and our ability to navigate the cycles of birth, growth, decay, and renewal. An imbalance here can lead to an inability to nurture oneself or others, or conversely, a tendency to be smothered by dependency or an overwhelming fear of life's inevitable losses. Recognizing these archetypal patterns playing out in our lives, in our relationships, and in the broader world, is a crucial aspect of individuation. It allows us to see beyond the purely personal and to connect our individual struggles and triumphs with the larger human story. It helps us to understand that our anxieties, our longings, our moments of despair and ecstasy, are not merely ours alone, but are part of a shared human inheritance. When we dream of flying, we touch the archetype of transcendence. When we feel an irresistible urge to create, we are moved by the archetype of the divine child or the artist. When we sacrifice for a cause greater than ourselves, we embody the hero or the martyr. The collective unconscious, this vast reservoir of archetypal potential, is not just a relic of the past, It is a living, dynamic force within us. It is the source of our deepest intuitions, our most profound symbols, and our most transformative experiences. To engage with the collective unconscious, through dreams, through art, through myth, through active imagination, is to tap into a wellspring of wisdom and energy that transcends the limitations of the personal ego. It is to realize that our individual psyche is part of a much larger, interconnected whole, a psychic nervous system that binds all of humanity. This understanding can be both humbling and profoundly empowering. It connects us to something ancient, something vast, something sacred. It is in this realm that the true work of individuation unfolds, as we strive to differentiate ourselves from these powerful archetypal influences while simultaneously integrating their energy and wisdom into our conscious lives, allowing the unique pattern of the self to emerge, not as a mere imitation of an archetype, but as an authentic expression of our own singular being, enriched and informed by the timeless patterns of the human spirit. The process of individuation is rarely a smooth, linear progression. It is more akin to a spiral, circling around certain core themes, revisiting old wounds from new perspectives, descending into darkness and re-emerging into light, again and again, each cycle bringing a deeper level of integration and awareness. It is a journey fraught with peril, with moments of profound disorientation, where the old maps no longer serve, and the new territory is shrouded in mist. Often, it is initiated by crisis, a painful loss, a shattering disillusionment, a career collapse, a health scare, or simply an unbearable sense of meaninglessness. These are the calls to adventure, the moments when the familiar structures of our lives break down, forcing us to confront the unknown, both within and without. Suffering, in this context, is not a sign that we are on the wrong path, but often the very catalyst that propels us onto the path of deeper self-discovery. It is the grit in the oyster that creates the pearl. It is the fire that tempers the steel of the soul. As Rumi so beautifully expressed, the wound is the place where the light enters you. This journey demands courage, persistence, and an unwavering commitment to honesty with oneself. One of the most vital tools for navigating this inner landscape is the interpretation of dreams. Jung called dreams the royal road to the unconscious, a direct line to the wisdom, the fears, and the potentials that lie hidden beneath the surface of our waking awareness. Dreams speak in a symbolic language, a language of images, metaphors, and emotions, rather than logical discourse. They are not mere random firings of neurons, but purposeful communications from the deeper psyche, offering insights, warnings, and guidance. A recurring dream of being chased might point to an aspect of the shadow we are fleeing from. A dream of a wise old figure might offer counsel from the archetype of the sage. A dream of a house with hidden rooms might symbolize undiscovered aspects of our own personality. To learn the language of our dreams is to engage in a profound dialogue with the self. It requires patience, intuition, and a willingness to look beyond the literal meaning of the images. It involves asking not just, "What did I dream?" but, "Why did my psyche choose this image, this story, to tell me something now?" Dreams often compensate for the one-sidedness of our conscious attitude. If we are too rational, they may be filled with emotion. If we are too materialistic, they may speak of spiritual yearning. They strive for balance, for wholeness. Then there is the phenomenon of synchronicity, which Jung defined as meaningful coincidence, events in the outer world that occur simultaneously with an inner psychological state, and which seem meaningfully related, yet have no discernible causal connection. You might be wrestling with a particular problem, and then a book falls open to a page that directly addresses your dilemma. Or you dream of a long-lost friend, only to receive a call from them the next day. These are not mere chance occurrences, according to Jung, but manifestations of an underlying order, a connection between psyche and physis, mind and matter. Synchronicities often occur at turning points in our lives, or when we are deeply engaged in the process of individuation. They can feel like winks from the universe, affirming that we are on the right track, or offering clues to our next step. They suggest that the inner and outer worlds are not separate, but are part of a unified field, a single reality that responds to our inner state. To pay attention to synchronicities is to cultivate an awareness of the subtle interplay between our inner journey and the unfolding of outer events. It is to recognize that we are part of a larger, meaningful pattern. Ultimately, the goal of individuation is the discovery and realization of one's unique meaning. This is not a meaning that can be handed down by tradition or dictated by external authorities, though these can offer valuable signposts. It is a meaning that must be forged in the crucible of one's own experience, born from the dialogue between the conscious ego and the unconscious self. For one person, meaning might be found in creative expression, for another, in service to others, for a third, in the pursuit of knowledge, for a fourth, in the cultivation of deep relationships or a connection with nature. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. The task is to listen deeply to the whispers of the soul, to discern what truly animates us, what gives us a sense of purpose and vitality, even in the face of suffering and limitation. This quest for meaning is what distinguishes a merely lived life from a truly meaningful one. It is what allows us to endure hardship, not with passive resignation, but with a sense of active participation in a larger, unfolding story. The final, and ongoing, stage of this journey is the integration of opposites, the conscious and unconscious, the persona and shadow, masculine and feminine, thinking and feeling, spirit and matter, light and darkness. This is the coniunctio oppositorum, the sacred marriage of alchemical tradition, the creation of the philosopher's stone, which symbolizes the integrated self. It is not about achieving a static state of perfection, but about cultivating a dynamic balance, an ability to hold the tension of opposites within oneself without splitting or dissociating. It is to become a vessel strong enough to contain the full spectrum of human experience. This is the courage to be whole, not just good. It is the courage to embrace your contradictions, your complexities, your magnificent, messy, and utterly unique humanity. This journey, this relentless movement towards wholeness, is not for the faint of heart. It asks everything of you. It demands that you relinquish the comfortable illusions, the cherished defenses, the identities that have outlived their purpose. It requires you to stand naked before your own soul, to bear witness to your own darkness, and to embrace the terrifying responsibility of your own freedom. But the reward is beyond measure. It is the emergence of the authentic self, not a perfect, flawless entity, but a resilient, integrated core of being, capable of navigating the complexities of life with wisdom, compassion, and a profound sense of inner authority. It is the feeling of coming home to yourself, of living in alignment with your deepest truths, of experiencing a quiet joy that is not dependent on external circumstances. This is not an endpoint, but a way of being, a continuous unfolding. The individuated person is not someone who has solved all their problems or transcended all their limitations. Rather, they are someone who has learned to live in conscious relationship with their inner world, who can meet their shadow with courage, engage their anima or animus with respect, and draw wisdom from the archetypal depths of the collective unconscious. They are someone who can wear their persona lightly, as a functional tool, not a rigid prison. They are capable of genuine relationship, not based on projection or need, but on a mutual recognition of unique otherness. They find meaning not in conformity, but in the courageous expression of their own singular truth. They live with an awareness of synchronicity, trusting the subtle guidance that arises from the interplay of inner and outer reality. Their dreams are not dismissed, but honored as vital messages from the soul. They understand that life is a tapestry woven of light and shadow, joy and sorrow, and they are willing to embrace it all. The call to individuation is the most profound invitation life extends to us. It is an invitation to move beyond the script handed to us by the world, and to write our own story, to sing our own song. It is the courage to choose authenticity over approval, meaning over comfort, wholeness over a fragmented existence. It is the realization that your life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived, a sacred work of art to be crafted from the raw material of your own unique being. Embrace the journey. Trust the process. Have the courage to descend into your depths, for it is there, in the darkness, that you will find your most brilliant light, the inextinguishable flame of your own true self. And in becoming who you truly are, you offer the world the most precious gift you possess, the unique, unrepeatable miracle of your own individuated consciousness. The world does not need more echoes. It needs more voices, authentic and resonant, singing the song of their own soul. Let yours be one of them.